Hello out there, it's Julie. It has been a minute. Um, it has been a very, very, very stressful last 2 weeks for me, and I need a distraction right now. I'm hoping that things are starting to sort of slow down on that stressful front. But long story short, trust your gut. Many times, it's always right, or most of the time, it's always right. So learn to trust your gut and that's all I'm going to say on that for now because I don't want to think about that situation anymore. So, with that said, I have my bandage off. I just have a little bit of a cut left. My finger's doing great, and I want to make some videos for you guys. So, I am going to be doing a full review on the Oak, Ash, and Thorn Tarot. This is a deck I ended up falling in love with. Let me move this up just a little bit. This is a deck that I ended up falling in love with that I didn't think I was going to like so much, and I'm really looking forward to doing a full review on this. I'd like to do some videos on different reading styles, things that I know now that I wish I had known as a beginner. But today, I am going to discuss 4 decks that I have gotten in over the last month and a half, maybe. 2 of them have been on my wish list. One of them was at the top of my wish list. One is a Marseille style deck, and the other is, I'm just going to go into it. It's the Little Sister Tarot. And this is a deck that I had seen a few different places, and I passed it up because I didn't like the name. I didn't like the name Little Sister Tarot. And then I saw somebody reading with it, and I decided to look at all of the images, and I fell in love with it. And this is another instance of like, don't judge a book by its cover, because once I got this deck in, it's a Rider-Waite-Smith style deck. Nice basic little book. Once I got this deck in, I fell in love with it right away. I mean, first, let's just appreciate how beautiful this color blue is. And I don't even know if the camera is going to do it justice. Here, I'll show you the book in the frame. It's like this really beautiful, like, I don't know, it's just like a perfect blue. And it reminds me of like Hawaii, the Hawaiian waters when I was in Hawaii. The backs are just really delightful. But the artwork in this deck is absolutely phenomenal. And there's something about this deck that feels witchy, for lack of a better word, but it's not like trendy witchy. It's like authentic witchy. So what I mean by that, I have a neighbor who is a self-proclaimed atheist, but that woman is a witch. She collects bones and she turns them into art because she wants to turn death into something beautiful. She collects like flowers and decaying like plant life from our yards and my neighborhood and our neighbors, and she collects all of these beautiful pieces of nature, and she's turning them into artwork. And she will swear up and down she doesn't believe in witchcraft or any of that kind of stuff, but there is just something very witchy about her. Like, this is that type of energy. It's just existing with an appreciation for nature and what that means and what it entails. And I hope I'm making sense when I say this. When I think of decks, like, I think it's like the Modern Witch, the Modern Witch deck, I think that's what it's called. It's a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but that's like very trendy witch, like, like how, the aesthetic, it's like the witch aesthetic, whereas this is like just existing your life in connection with nature and what that means. So I hope I'm not judging, like, I don't want that to come across as judgmental. I'm just trying to show like the difference. But there's just something so beautiful about the artwork in this deck. It really is how the artist interprets the Rider-Waite-Smith. The artwork is phenomenal. But it really is, it's like, it's witchy, it's diverse. And if you're, looking for a deck, if you're, coming off of your first basic Rider-Waite-Smith deck, this is another great Rider-Waite-Smith deck to have. It's just absolutely spectacular, for real, for real. Very, very feminine, very female oriented, but not in a way that feels exclusive, right? Does that make sense? It just feels there's this really quiet power to this deck. It's subtle. It forces you to sort of look beyond the surface. I don't know. I just think I'm just blown away, and I'm so glad I ended up seeing somebody read with it, because I may have really missed out on what actually is an incredibly fantastic deck. So excuse me. This is the Little Sister Tarot by Ginny Thompson. All right, so the next deck is, I have the Tarot de Marseille edition Millennium, and I love this deck, but the cards are really nice. This is a really nice card stock, and this isn't a deck that I necessarily want to use as a workhorse. This is something I want to use for readings, not something that I want to like shuffle through and use all the time, because it is such a nice deck. So I've been looking for a vintage Marseille, and I just have not found one I liked, but I want to start studying more at the Marseille. So on Tarot Arts, Artisan Tarot had this Conver, Nicholas Conver Tarot de Marseille, and this is the one I purchased to use sort of as my workhorse. And what I love about this deck is it's sort of like playing card stock. So I know that this deck is going to be able to take a good amount of usage and still look pretty decent. And I wish I could tell you the history of the Conver deck. I know it in my head. I just can't relay it. I'm reading a book right now by Yoav Ben Dov. What is it called? The Tarot de Marseille Revealed. Yes, that's what it is. And it is such an amazing book. If you're a beginner or somebody who's just starting out, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is a great deck to start with. But now that I'm sort of on the other side and I'm very well acquainted and experienced with the Rider-Waite-Smith, in retrospect, I really wish I had started learning with a Marseille deck, because you're forced to learn the suits, the majors, the numbers, and the courts. And this is sort of like really your foundation when it comes to tarot. So if you're somebody watching this and you're just starting out in tarot, don't discount reading with a Marseille deck, because it really is an incredible tool to learn with. And if you can read this deck, you're going to be able to read any deck that comes your way, especially if you go to the Rider-Waite-Smith after this, because then you're going to be adding a whole other layer of symbolism that can help you take your reading in different directions. So I actually suggest starting with a Marseille, but I love this version. It's very clean. It's very easy to read. The suits do have, the minors do have the numbers here, because sometimes when I'm reading with the swords, and the wands, it gets a little confusing. So this definitely makes it a little bit easier when you have the numbers on the side, because then I find myself like counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? But now I can just look 8 of, I think that's wands, swords and wands. They look very similar. Hold on. I don't know. No, no, I have to go back. I have not used this deck quite enough yet. Obviously, I haven't used Marseille style deck like this very, very much at this point. But anyway, this is the Nicholas Conver Tarot de Marseille from Artisan Tarot. So the next deck is one that has been on my wish list, and it is Tarot Balbi. And this is an out-of-print deck. This is a vintage deck from 1976. And it is a bilingual deck. So it is en español y en inglés. So it comes with this sheet that, gives you all the basic information of the cards, a nice little spread. But this is a pip deck. but it is just so, I got these two, colorful and fun. Look at that. Look at the colors. It's loud, it's happy. And if I'm working with a deck and I want to use a deck that has pips and I don't want to use the Marseille, because the Marseille, I do see this, I'm seeing more as a study kind of deck for myself personally. This is a deck that I would gravitate towards if I was reading for somebody else, because the colors speak to me. Even the little symbolism on the pip cards speak to me. So, and that can give you a whole other layer within your reading. But this is just such a fun deck, such a pretty deck. I love this Three of Cups. Like, look at that. It's so busy in a good way. That's like good busy. The Empress. And I love when an Empress looks like a strong woman, not just barefoot and pregnant. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because the next deck I'm going to show you, the Empress is pregnant. So it's just different ways of interpreting it. But I adore this deck. And there isn't much more than this. I don't think there's a book that comes with this that I'm aware of. So like all the different little symbols, I have to look through the little pamphlet, but I have to see if like all the little symbols and the pentacles, you know, obviously they mean something. I believe that's an astrology symbol. The moon, this is the Star of David, but it's the, oh my gosh, the combination of fire and water, balance, masculine, feminine, coming together, unity. There's a word for that. I can't access it at this moment. But it's so fun. And it's in the images on the major are definitely based off the Tarot de Marseille, for sure. But then the minor is just, there's a little bit more oomph, a little bit more pep, a little bit more happiness to them. But yeah, this is a real fun one. I think, you know, I wouldn't say it's readily available, but you can definitely find copies on eBay or Etsy. So yeah. All right. One last one. Now, this last deck has been at the top of my wish list for quite a while. And I know it's print on demand, but I was not aware that there were only 200 copies of this made. And if you wanted to get it now, you can, but it is print on demand. And I have not been able to find it anywhere. And it's the Liminal Tarot. And I have been wanting this deck for so long. And the reason it's not readily available is because there's only 200 copies. So I happened to get really lucky. To date, this is the most expensive deck that I own, but there was just something about this deck that was calling to me. That I don't know if you guys feel this, but there's certain decks that you just feel hold a bit of magic, a bit of wonder. And somebody else may look at the deck and not understand it, but for you, there is this sort of sense of wonder about it. And that's the Liminal Tarot for me. And I will say this isn't even necessarily the style of artwork that I'm really into, but I was just really called to this deck. And it does seem to be a little bit of a combination between Thoth and Rider-Waite-Smith, because here we can see the images illustrated in a manner that Rider-Waite-Smith may illustrate them. But as we get to the majors, you'll see that there are some differences. I just think, look at that Seven of Swords. Isn't that interesting? Interesting way of conceptualizing it. Six of Swords, Four of Swords. Now, I don't know if there's a book that goes with this. Look at the Hierophant's a tree. Like, I love that. Eight of Discs, Two of Discs. I love the version of the Tower, that version of the Tower. So I believe that this artist was creating this deck as a collective deck with other artists. But I believe, if I recall correctly, what I read online is that she ended up finishing a deck herself, and this is the deck that she ended up finishing. I may be wrong there, but I believe that's the case. So we have the Threshold, and I forget which card this is. Is it Judgment? I forget. It was in order when I got it, and of course I've taken it out of order. And I have no way to figure out what way the order is supposed to be, but beautiful Death card. Love the Ace of Cups. Now here the Empress is pregnant, but you know, it is what it is. That's not going to put me off the deck because there's just something really, I don't know, I'm just really enchanted by this deck. We have Anima Mundi instead of the World. That Priestess is just chef's kiss. Adjustment. So we have Adjustment. And it was in the order. So this is the 8th card in this deck. Look at that's my favorite card in the deck. That's such a beautiful version of the star, in my opinion. The Hanged One. Love the King and Queen of Swords. I love the King and Queen of Swords in this deck. The Three of Swords is quite beautiful too. Where is... Yeah. Strength. And this was the 11th card in the deck. So it does go in order of Thoth. It has Adjustment instead of Justice. So there's a bit of a Thothy feeling, but it really does feel more Rider-Waite-Smith to me than it does Thoth. But we have the Magus, so that again feels more Thothy. Fortuna, Two of Wands. So this is my my little collection that I have accumulated over the last month and a half, maybe 2 months. And I'm really excited to get to use these when I do eventually get to use them. But what I love about them is the fact that I've been waiting for this deck. I've been trying to find a really good, clean version of this deck that doesn't look like it's been too used. Because I don't mind used decks, but I don't like when they look beat up necessarily. And then I got my workhorse for my new journey into the Marseille. And then, of course, the Little Sister Tarot. And this is going to be a deck. Here I go again. Desk deck, meaning this is going to probably stay on my desk along with my original Rider-Waite-Smith. I have certain decks that I always keep on my desk because they're ones that I just tend to reach for again and again and again. And I do believe that's going to be one. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will hopefully be able to get back soon with my other videos that I want to record. And I hope y'all are doing well. Cheers.